Kuwait is on the move. In 2017, the national government unveiled Kuwait Vision 2035. It is a formidable developmental initiative designed to haul the country out of its long-standing dependence on oil and direct it to a more diversified, knowledge-driven economy. Now, this is already an objective shared across the Gulf, but as it stands, Kuwait is losing the race. To the south, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Qatar are powering ahead with dizzying megawatts, record volumes of foreign investment, and hyper-developed hubs for aviation, finance and tourism. So, to keep up, Kuwait is ramping up government investment with a series of new critical mega-projects. Tens of billions of dollars have already been spent, and many more will follow. The expansion of Kuwait International Airport and its wider aviation sector is a cornerstone of this campaign. Visually striking, technically impressive, and titanic in scale, the airport serves as a potent symbol of Kuwait's ambitions. Beyond the glitz, though, it represents a make-or-break catalyst in a country that is desperate to reinvent itself geopolitically and economically. Whether this new airport can catapult Kuwait into reaching its true potential, that remains to be seen. The journey here. Now, when you trace the evolution of a country's airport and aviation sector, you can often map out the ebbs and flows of its modern history. Kuwait is no exception. So, to riff off the old adage, if we want to get a sense of where Kuwait and its airport are headed, we need to know a little bit about where they came from. The real beginnings of the country's aviation history can be traced back to the late 1920s, when Kuwait was just a modest, albeit strategically located port town under British protection. Imperial Airways, the predecessor to British Airways, really imperial, on the nose, guys, stitched the Bedouin hub into its intercontinental air routes, their rickety aircraft touching down at Dasna Airport, a simple landing strip on the town's outskirts. The planes would stop to refuel, typically on the long, grueling trips between Britain and India. Civil flights began in 1932, an important step for a region whose wealth largely derived from pearls and regional trade. With the discovery of the oil fields just 2 years later in 1934 and the subsequent founding of the Kuwait Oil Company, a new, more modern airport was quickly proposed to manage rising corporate traffic and the influx of foreign technicians. The outbreak of World War II forced British administrators to shelve the project, but it was resumed in the late 1940s with Kuwait's oil economy by then at full throttle. Al Nugra Airport, as it was called, was raised in the Nuzha district of Kuwait City with a larger runway, concrete buildings, and hangars for strictly daytime operations. Ticketing offices for foreign airlines, meanwhile, began proliferating in the nearby urban hub. Operations grew steadily throughout the 1950s, undergirded by Kuwait's position as the leading oil exporter in the Persian Gulf and boosted by the 1954 creation of Kuwait's own homegrown carrier, Kuwait National Airways. In 1961, just after the country's independence from the British Empire, Kuwait raised its new Mugwa Airport, as it was called, about 60 kilometers south of its capital. Operations at the old Al Nugra fizzled out, and the infrastructure was gradually dismantled in favor of the new hub. Today, it is the site of the country's modern-day hub, Kuwait International Airport. Boasting a 2.2-kilometer asphalt runway, a passenger terminal, apron, and 24-hour control tower, it grew to meet rising demand. It would also soon accommodate the national carrier's larger fleet, having absorbed 4 DC-6s of its national competitor, Trans-Arabia Airways. The investments were crucial in linking the world with what was, at the time in the 60s and 70s, the most developed, progressive, and economically diverse country in the entire Gulf region. Along with perhaps Bahrain, Kuwait was actually leading the region's aviation sector, largely thanks to its flag carrier. By 1979, it had increased capacity to around 5 million passengers a year through the construction of a new terminal. Whereas previous operations had been limited to daytime, the expanded airport now offered 24-hour operations and was fitted with cutting-edge navigation, precision landing and communication systems, as well as a modern lighting network. A brand new cargo hub was also erected right next to the terminal to meet growing demand in the region. Now, I don't want to geek out on architecture too much, but in this case, kind of feel I have to. And that's because, as terminals go, this particular one was, and indeed remains, pretty darn niche. Have a look yourselves. The mind behind it was the great Japanese architect Kenzo Tange, a pioneer of his native country's metabolist movement which rose out of Japan's post-war ashes. Propped up by booming oil revenue and somewhat smitten by Japanese culture, several Middle Eastern countries, Kuwait being the most prominent, offered a willing canvas for the movement's main exponents. Having already found success designing the Kuwaiti embassy in Tokyo, Kenzo Tange's new Terminal 2, as it was called back then, was greeted with worldwide acclaim. One leading British critic called it the most beautiful in the world, praising its, quote, breathtaking simplicity of color and shape, its, quoting again, white sculptured space as cool as an ice cube, as enormous as a vat intake of pure air, as light as a tent, as a canvas hung from cables and sails. And that was just the inside. Now look from a bird's eye view. It's literally designed like an aircraft. Add real planes parked along its contours, and you've got baby planes suckling on the mothercraft. Some enthusiasts likened it more to a Hollywood-style spaceship. Considering the cultural phenomenon that was Star Wars at the time, this probably isn't a coincidence. But now the history gets darker. After a series of expansions and facelifts during the 1980s, including a second 3.5-kilometer eastern runway parallel to the existing one, Kuwait's world-famous airport entered a traumatic, era-defining stage of its trajectory, one brought on by Iraq's scarring invasion of Kuwait. On the 2nd of August 1990, the airport was taken over by the forces of Saddam Hussein, the invaders repurposing the airport for military logistics, seizing and relocating at least 15 Kuwaiti military and civilian aircraft to prevent their use by coalition forces. The runways and facilities were fortified and stitched into the defensive apparatus. Much of the interior was vandalized, gutted, and resold. By February of the following year, the airport and the routes leading to the hub were the site of the Battle of Kuwait International Airport. This was the last major ground engagement of the coalition's liberation campaign, and it was especially devastating. Tank and artillery fire, notably cluster bombs, decimated the airport's infrastructure, leaving huge craters on runways, taxiways, and buildings, while Iraqis doggedly defended the outpost, unaware that a ceasefire had been called. The airport battle lasted just one day, ending with the ceasefire and liberation of Kuwait, but the damage was severe. Fortunately, with US funding, the airport's partial restoration was fairly rapid. Limited civilian flights were allowed to resume by mid-1991. Full recovery and modernization took several more years, however, with additional investments estimated to be at between $50 and $100 billion, alongside increased volumes of military defenses. Fast forward now to 2017, Kuwait had long recovered from its war wounds and was seeing promising growth with a competitive aviation sector. About a decade earlier, government officials had liberalized aviation services, giving rise to the privately owned carriers Jazeera Airways and Wataniya Airways. Regional low-cost carriers like Fly Dubai and Saudi Arabia's Flynus also ensured steady traffic. By the end of 2017, Kuwait Airport had served a respectable 11.7 million passengers. Even with the smaller Sheikh Saad General Aviation Terminal, opened in 2009, now discontinued, the airport was overflowing. Relieving it became an official priority. So, 2 more terminals, 5 and 4, were raised in that order in May and August of 2018. Terminal 5 still serves Jazeera Airways. Terminal 4, with 9 boarding gates and a capacity of 4.5 million passengers per year, serves the national carrier, Kuwait Airways. Overall, these have been effective temporary stopgaps, but even combined, they can't hold the fort for much longer. And Kuwait has been facing another issue for decades, and it's now reaching the point of alarm: the irresistible and exponential rise of its southern neighbors, which are rapidly chipping away at its relevancy in the Gulf. What Kuwait desperately needed and needs was the terminal it had been dreaming up and discreetly planning for years. That is the new 708,000 square meter colossus, Terminal 2. Just before we continue with today's video, quick word from our fantastic sponsor. Look, you're not actually anonymous online. Your internet provider, they know what you're doing. They know the sites you visit. They're tracking you. And well, what about your inbox? Well, it's probably getting probed by a bunch of phishing scams, isn't it? Well, Surfshark, today's sponsor, is a VPN that helps you get your privacy back. You can encrypt your internet activity, hide your location, and even block ads, trackers, and malicious links using their new web content blocker. They've also rolled out an email scam checker. You just drop in an address and it'll tell you if it's been leaked or targeted. Plus, one account covers unlimited devices, which is fantastic if you're the IT guy for your friends and family, because you can share the love around. Go to surfshark.com/mega or use the code MEGA at checkout and get 4 extra months of Surfshark for free. Again, that's surfshark.com/mega. Take your privacy back. And now back to today's episode. Liftoff. The planned new terminal alone, never mind the other existing ones, is expected to handle up to 13 million passengers a year once it's open for commercial travel. It sounds underwhelming, but it will have plenty of room to grow. A second phase of expansion in the not-so-distant future is expected to increase capacity to 25 million per year. Beyond that, it's expected to reach 50 million or more. Add to that the roughly 14 million annual capacity of the complex's other active terminals combined, and this will effectively put Kuwait in league with some of the highest capacity airports in the world. Accordingly, then, the new airport will be big. At an impressive 708,000 square meters just in floor area, it will dwarf the existing terminals. Terminal 4, for instance, serving Kuwait Airways, is just 55,000 square meters, whereas Terminal 5 for Jazeera Airways is even smaller. For scale, Terminal 2 will be able to fit Kenzo Targe's Terminal 1, yep, it was renumbered, 3 times over. The estimated project cost of the new terminal stands at around $4.3 billion, all funded by the Kuwaiti government. But this is likely a conservative figure. The total expansion costs are estimated between $5.8 and $8.2 billion, depending on the outlet and the project phases included in the estimate. The commission for the airport's design was won by the world-renowned Pritzker Prize-winning architectural firm Foster & Partners based in London. Construction is being handled by the Turkish firm Limak Inşaat, setting a record for the largest single-package contract ever awarded to a Turkish contractor abroad. Meanwhile, the Spanish engineering and consultancy company Ineco is providing project management and operational readiness services for the overall expansion program. Phase 1, launched in 2017, focused on the terminal itself, the central utilities, cooling plants, baggage systems, and the service tunnels beneath it. By 2023, officials were already reporting around 70% completion. As of late 2025, at the time of recording, much of the infrastructure is already complete. Priority has obviously been given to infrastructure, which other phases depend on, so that operations in these phases can A, get a head start, and B, operate smoothly without interruption. Phase 2 focuses on surrounding structures, including an enormous parking area, about 325,000 square meters, with a capacity for nearly 5,000 vehicles, distributed over 3 basements and a mezzanine floor. Also built were new access roads, ground transport centers, administrative buildings, and construction yards. We know that Phase 2 neared the 70% completion mark by early 2024 and can be reasonably expected to be fully operational within the coming months. Phase 3, the final stage, focuses exclusively on the airside sections. Earthworks for these commenced in late 2024, signaling that the mega-project had officially entered its final structural leg. Key to this stage was the complex's new third runway, spanning 4.58 kilometers in length. It's one of the longest in the Gulf region, and its length will provide aircraft with sufficient lift to make up for the thin, low-density air that characterizes extremely high temperatures. The runway will also easily accommodate some of the largest capacity aircraft in aviation today, such as the Airbus A380. As of late October 2025, it's now fully completed and operational, equipped with the latest technological and safety trappings, setting it up for 21st century success. This development, by the way, officially greenlit the start of major works on the 1986 Eastern runway for a planned 14-month period, during which time the third runway will assume the bulk of the operations. It will be expanded to 4 kilometers, restored after decades of heavy air traffic, and modernized with cutting-edge radar and precision guiding technologies that safeguard operational efficiency and safety. Taxiways, aprons, drainage systems, and pavements will also be renovated or added in this phase, likewise for tunnel networks and service buildings required for daily operations. Already installed is a new control tower, replacing a smaller, now outdated one from 1986. It must be said, and this is a trend in the wider Arab world, it is unusually attractive for a control tower, with its Islamic-inspired geometric patterns and its solar orange tint radiating over the surrounding desert. Naturally, it's also top of the range, with advanced navigational systems allowing its operators to manage over 600,000 flight movements each year, and with 360-degree coverage over all 3 runways. We also know it's built on base isolator foundations, managing risk in the event of earthquakes or tremors. And all in all, I'm sure you'll agree, this amounts to a heck of an operation, and we've barely even touched on the heavy-duty projects. As of late 2025, the official completion target remains late 2026, with the first operational phases said to open soon thereafter. A popular joke among Kuwaitis is to call the government's broader development campaign Vision 3035, a slight operational delay just shy of a millennium. As with all good jokes, though, there's a great slab of truth to it. When construction works began in 2017, the overall project was slated for completion by August 2022. Now, of course, COVID dealt a huge blow, switching the tap off global supply chains and halting the huge inflow of foreign manpower required for construction. But then there are other culprits as well: logistical issues on the ground, bureaucratic gridlocks, bidding and tendering irregularities, and damaging red tape are also largely to blame. Though COVID certainly hammered Kuwait's aviation sector, these same, more systemic issues have gradually hampered Kuwait's ability to compete in the aviation sector. Here's an example. In 2023, the airport served over 15.6 million passengers, a 26% increase from the previous year. By mid-2024, though, that rate had actually gone down by 1%. The following year, down by 3%. And while every single other major airport in the Gulf, bar none, was seeing steady or even record-breaking air traffic rates, not so in Kuwait. Dubai, for one, recorded 92.3 million passengers in 2024, up 6.1% from the previous year, a historic high for the wider region, and highlights the additional need for its mammoth new airport, touted to handle an unfathomable 260 million passengers annually. We've made a video about it, it's insane. Of course, through pure economies of scale, mega airports like Dubai, Doha, Riyadh, and Abu Dhabi are all drawing traffic away from Kuwait with better infrastructure and logistics, cheaper jet oil, and more extensive route networks. But again, also to blame are Kuwait airports' own inefficiencies, not least outdated infrastructure and services. Carriers persistently reported operational inadequacies and delays, all of which compromise passenger experience. Add to this bureaucratic sluggishness, slow decision-making, and institutional setbacks, and these trends unsurprisingly lead to failures attracting new airlines or renewing old contracts. The result has actually been a steady exodus of major airlines. British Airways suspended direct flights in March 2024 after 6 decades of operations. This was following previous pullouts from Lufthansa and KLM. In total, at least 14 airlines have ceased operations since 2019, a clear sign of Kuwait's economic unviability as an air hub. If it wants to stay competitive, it has little choice but to press ahead with its expansion program. It appears the terminal is indeed near completion. A telltale sign of this is the recent installations of passenger boarding bridges. These are usually among the last pieces of heavy-duty equipment installed in the building process. We'll just have to see for the rest. More importantly, though, Kuwait needs to ensure that when it is ready, it solves its paralyzing institutional and bureaucratic issues and its lagging business climate to stay relevant and meet its developmental goals. More on that later. For now, that's enough doom and gloom, as we now need to turn to the fruits gained from years of hard work, which Kuwait's officials can proudly unveil to the public. And that is, of course, the Great Terminal itself, a mega project in its own right. Raising the mammoth. For starters, the design for Terminal 2 is unique and once again showcases the Kuwaiti government's predilection for visual aesthetics. To anticipate the hecklers, by the way, no, this video isn't sponsored by any interested parties. You've just got to hand it to them. It's really tasteful. The building features 3 1.2-kilometer-long symmetrical wings, all extending from a central node standing 25 meters tall. One could say the airport resembles a tri-bladed propeller, building on the aeronautical theme set by Kenzo Tange in the 1970s. There are, however, more deliberate themes targeted by the contractors. The triangular shape is reminiscent of the Gulf's traditional dhow sailing boats, historically used for pearling and shipping. It also echoes Kuwait's and indeed the wider region's birds of prey, particularly the revered falcon, while in flight, of course. Fittingly, both the dhow and the falcon make up Kuwait's national coat of arms. A major feature of the roof, spanning nearly 300,000 square meters, I should add, is the vast expanse of photovoltaic solar panels, the largest in the world for a single terminal. There'll be around 81,000 of them, with an estimated peak power of 29.4 megawatts, designed to generate around 50 gigawatt hours annually. That will provide nearly half of the energy required for hot water heating, while representing an estimated 10% of the total energy consumed by the building, according to one source. Now, the main roof structure, that's an engineering and architectural flex. It's supported by 90 mega concrete columns linked by post-tension precast arches and 817 precast elements, all weighing between 150 and 350 tons and positioned about 40 meters above the raft slab. Holding these together are an incredible 36,964 composite steel and concrete shell cassettes, each weighing between 2.6 and 6 tons and of various shapes and sizes. Grouped together as modular blocks, they'll make up the Islamic suffused domes spanning the length and breadth of the terminal's interior space. All these shell cassettes were made on-site by the Danish company Adapa, specialized in mechanical innovation and computer-aided mold manufacturing. Concretely, we're talking about 85 reusable, digitally adaptable tables with laser actuators molding tens of thousands of unique multi-ton molds at a baffling rate of around 100 units a day across 9 different factory areas. With a fleet of specialized cranes all working in unison, these shells were strand-jacked up into place onto a temporary work solution, chiefly made up of secondary steel-tied arches. So you get a sense of the timeline and scale here. Cassette fabrication began in December 2018, installation began in April 2019. 3 years later, by March 2022, factoring in interruptions from COVID, both fabrication and installation were officially complete. The overall design cautiously accounted for the need to adapt to local conditions in one of the hottest inhabited countries on Earth. The huge concrete structure provides significant thermal mass, that's to say the roof, but also the even thicker 30-centimeter external walls. The roof is, in fact, dotted with over 8,000 glazed skylights, filtering daylight and preventing heat gain by reflecting direct solar radiation. Over 63% of the building's facades are covered with high-performance double glazing, particularly those facing east and west. All this will lend to an elegant and airy ensemble, with natural light flooding a terminal designed for elegant simplicity and, quote, human legibility, as its designers, Fosters and Partners called it. More crucially, perhaps, the thermal insulation features will greatly serve to reduce expensive energy consumption for the terminal's air conditioning and lighting systems. There has, in fact, been an overarching emphasis on sustainability in the project's design and construction. The Kuwaiti government is on a mission to obtain LEED Gold certification, a coveted award from the US Green Building Society certifying stellar eco-credentials, ones that hold up the best environmental practices of the industry. If it wins the award, and it is likely to do so, it will be one of the few passenger terminals in the world, and certainly the largest, to do so. Here are some examples of how this has been observed in the building's planning and construction. Designs accounted for rigorous measures on water conservation, from the installation of low-flow taps to the reuse of grey water consumed in the sinks and later repurposed for toilet flush water. All this is estimated to reduce consumption by nearly 50%. The water from the airport's lavatories will also be treated on site, then used to irrigate the expensive landscaped areas outside, axing the need for irrigation-bound potable water by as much as 100%. Regional, environmentally friendly materials have been extensively used, with a significant amount recycled from construction waste in local landfills. Factored into the construction's budget was a dedicated crew to clean up the worksite and recycle as much of the waste as possible. A recorded 86% of the collected waste was recycled. On the subject of pollutants, building materials like paints, adhesives, and sealants have been purposely chosen with low levels of VOCs or volatile organic compounds, while high-tech air handling units will also be fitted for optimal air quality and thermal comfort. Overall, then, the terminal should be clean, very well lit, ambient, and easily navigable. It's been designed with human friendliness and navigability in mind, with each of its closely spaced 5 floors serving a distinct role in the passenger experience. The ground and first floors, for example, serve arrivals and check-in respectively, while the others mainly serve the essential airport services, departure gates, and VIP lounges. But now that we've discussed the main terminal building, what can we expect of the overall passenger experience? What will the airport's technological specs be? Leveling up. So, the operation's guts. As you might expect, to compete both regionally and internationally and to accommodate expected air traffic, the airport's technology systems need to be top tier. The baggage handling system, or BHS, appears to be up to task. In fact, it ranks among the airport's most advanced features. Designed by the German Beamer Group, it uses totes for the bags to be sorted, tracked, and ferried on high-speed conveyors in the underground baggage network. It'll be capable of processing an astonishing 2,930 bags an hour from its inception, with plenty of room to grow. The system incorporates whole baggage screening, which relies on computed tomography X-ray units observing the highest international security standards. An invaluable feature for the system's operational efficiency is the rack-based EBS, or Early Baggage Storage System. This will allow up to 1,800 items of luggage to be stored in a designated area until needed, lifted on and off by a computer-controlled automatic mini-loader. This will accommodate early luggage check-ins, but also prevent the system from oversaturation during busy hours. Lower priority suitcases will be carted off there and parked before being carted off again to their designated plane just before departure. It does this most effectively through a system called batch building, where bags for the same flight are automatically grouped and retrieved in bulk. This speeds up the loading process onto carts or unit load devices and makes it easier for ground handlers. Moving on now to the passenger experience and the sorts of tech passengers will likely be interacting with. As concerns carry-on baggage screening, officials have mercifully invested in advanced computed tomography X-ray scanners, technologies which will end once and for all the dreaded parting of man and liquid. In excess of 100 mil, anyway. Yes, both liquids and electronics can stay inside their bags, where they rightfully belong, hopefully without major headache. We can reasonably expect a substantial number of passport scanning smart gates at immigration, eliminating the need for manual checks. There's not much by way of press coverage on the topic, but given the project's budget and scope, as well as the need to compete internationally, it seems likely. Just how much biometric infrastructure will be available in the coming years, i.e. thumb and facial recognition technologies, that's not clear yet. Given prior enrollment is needed for these systems before travel, supply will likely be ramped up only when and if passengers cotton on to the new system technology and actually take the time to enroll before their flight. As for the airside advances, that is, the part of the terminal beyond customs and passport control, the airport is also leveling up big time as part of the aforementioned third phase. The terminal's 36 boarding gates will be equipped with state-of-the-art technology, namely Advanced Visual Docking Guidance Systems, or AVDGS. While these are now becoming a gold standard around the world's more developed airports, they still deserve a mention. Essentially, they're automated, high-precision systems that combine sensors and a display unit to guide pilots to the exact parking spot where their aircraft has been assigned at a given gate. This replaces the need for human marshalers, thereby axing the risk of human error, decreasing and standardizing turnaround times while increasing gate safety. And because they're going all out, Kuwaiti officials have opted for the very latest technology, which in theory means 100% accurate aircraft identification, integration, and obstacle detection on the apron. Complementing this upgrade will be a network of advanced airfield lighting. These provide visual cues for both pilots and air traffic controllers, maximizing safety and operational smoothness in low visibility conditions, particularly at night. That typically means appropriately spaced LED lights outlining the thresholds of the runways, the taxiways, and the apron areas. All of these will be adjustable, both manually and automatically, depending on visibility conditions. Cool. So, the big question now still remains. Is any of this going to pay off? Will Kuwait be able to compete with the lightning pace of its neighbors? With all this leveling up, will it pose a serious challenge to their regional dominance in the aviation sector? Kuwait's trial. And the short answer is no, probably not. Not in the near future, anyway. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar have all diversified earlier. They've done so much more aggressively, and they've been buttressed by revenue Kuwait simply has not been able to compete with. That said, it does not realistically aim to be the tourist and global transit hubs that Dubai or Riyadh are, but it can become a major hub in the Northern Gulf while using its airport to increase tourism, foreign investment, and overall as an effective modern gateway for its national economy and people. The issue, then, is not so much whether it can outperform its neighbors in the aviation sector, it's whether it can keep up with the high and fast-moving standards of the international modern aviation sector, perhaps even whether it can keep up with itself. Some experts say no, that Kuwait has already lagged too far behind, that its issues are so systemic that it is practically doomed to fall behind even further. They cite the same factors that brought about Kuwait's lack of competitiveness, clearly shown by the pullout of those international carriers, which, beside those mentioned earlier, also include major names like United Airlines, Delta, Air France, and Singapore Airlines. The problem seen earlier of economic inviability, outdated equipment, and sluggish decision-making, these spring from the top. As one source writes, there's too much reliance on a single authority, the general authority of civil aviation. It goes on, warning, quoting again, Kuwait needs to broaden the conversation, include other credible entities, and urgently implement a practical, time-bound action plan to reverse this trend. End quote. Another commenter refers to, quoting again, a combination of long-term neglect and missed opportunities. Gulf countries have poured billions into next-generation terminals, seamless passenger experiences, and digital innovation. Kuwait has struggled to keep pace. End quote. As recently as May 2025, the CEO of Kuwait Airways was dismissed after ongoing issues with regulatory compliance, whatever that means, and delays in correcting serious operational deficiencies. This is a strong indication that the Kuwaiti government is serious about Vision 2035, but it's also a testament to concerning managerial issues perhaps stemming from a business culture often cited as prone to stagnation. It's argued that while upgrades to the airport and airline show sincere government willingness for growth, Kuwait lacks, quote, a comprehensive national aviation strategy aligned with broader economic goals. One way to achieve this is by leveling up on public-private partnerships, as has been done with great success in the other Gulf states. A poll conducted by Aviation Business Middle East asked a range of investors if they believed Kuwait was too far behind to recover its position as a competitive Gulf aviation hub. 46% outright said no, 32% said that major investment could make it possible, and 8% said it would require a total overhaul of the airport itself. But lest we forget, besides its astronomical oil revenue, Kuwait has another vital thing going for it, and that's geography. If you take a look at Great Circle routes, so the shortest distance between 2 points on a globe, Kuwait sits directly beneath many of the major flight routes connecting Europe with Southeast and Southeast Asia. This in practice means shorter diversions for airlines that use Kuwait as a hub, which in turn means shorter connecting flights. This is a major draw for international travelers, but for operators too. With the extra time saved, it means more flights can be conducted and with less fuel burned. All of which, of course, means they get more money. And this is especially interesting for those operating in the aviation corridors between Europe and the subcontinent, i.e. India and Pakistan, two of the largest corridors on Earth at present. Being at the northern tip of the Gulf, Kuwait is the region's gateway. Compared to its southeast counterparts, it is much closer to major markets in Europe, North Africa, and much of Asia. Iran, Turkey, the Levant, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. These are all important emerging markets that trade in large volumes with the Gulf states. So Kuwait has great potential to become an essential cargo hub. This could be achieved with the new road network it's building near the Iraqi border, but more importantly still, thanks to the planned and historic GCC railway slated to link all 6 member states of the region's political and economic union. If Kuwait pulls off its development goals by 2035, its ambitions as a cargo hub and transit point can reasonably be materialized. Take the Northern Economic Zone, the planned new smart city near Kuwait's border with Iraq. The government's investing about $3.3 billion to raise it up from the sand, and it aims to become a major logistics and industrial center through direct foreign and private investment. Being near the vital port of Mubarak al-Kabir, the border with Iraq, and connecting to the planned GCC rail, its connectivity will be crucial to its success. Not just in diversifying Kuwait's national economy away from oil, being a productive industrial center in its own right, but in the sense that it'll be linked up to major regional supply chains. That, of course, benefits the economy through direct investment and the creation of jobs in trade, transportation, logistics, warehousing, and more. But of most importance, perhaps, it can significantly raise Kuwait's geopolitical clout in the region. It can make itself indispensable with ramped up and even new supply chains connecting Eurasia and the booming Gulf states. Now, the new airport will shadow and feed this growth, and it's set to be an integral part of Kuwait's national strategy. It can even be argued that the success of its other development goals, including its welfare, financial, and business-leaning aspirations, all hinge on the success of Kuwait's airport. Being a driver of direct and indirect revenue, foreign investment, tourism, and soft power, the airport is a key that can unlock many doors for Kuwait in its 21st century trajectory. Alongside with its other megaprojects, the Northern Economic Zone, the GCC Railway, and the planned tech and finance hub, Silk City, Kuwait can transform itself so that it doesn't just lag behind economically, but actually makes itself strategically and economically invaluable for the wider region. That will involve having to tackle some of its inherent political issues, properly managing some key geopolitical partnerships, and having clear strategic goals for the future of its country. Thank you for watching.